24,559 number of refugees were settled to the United States in 2017. 40 million people are eternally displaced around the world.
Refugee admissions from the U.S. Department of State records that more than 3.3 million refugees are accepted for permanent resettlement in the United States since 1975, which is more than any other country in the world. 28,300 people are forced to flee from their home every day because of violence and persecution.
Far away in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there's been a war going on since 1998. But safe in my room in my little town of Clarkston, Georgia, it's easy to forget about all the war and political unrest that my family and many others have experienced and are still experiencing. Just before I was born, my family decided to leave the Congo in hopes that they could provide a better, safer life for their future children. Escaping wasn't easy though, because they had to leave completely unnoticed. It took months and months of planning, and after a lot of thought, my mother, father, and grandparents, and a few of my cousins decided the best course of action would be to split into groups and head for Kenya, where they would be accepted as asylum seekers. Unfortunately, when they separated, that would be the last time they ever saw my father or my cousins. Once in Kenya, they were placed in a refugee camp. They were given shelter, food and water, and some support. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Their neighbors were from all over, the Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, and more. Everyone was so different languages, cultures, religion, but they all had one thing in common. They were running away from persecution, war, and other disasters. I was born in this camp, and I would spend the next 12 years of my life there while we waited refugee status. I liked Kenya, but I was always very aware that I didn't belong. Even though I dressed like, talked like, and acted like the other Kenyan children, I always knew that I was different. I didn't feel Kenyan, but I also didn't feel Congolese. Then finally, after 10 years of living in a tent, we finally got our refugee status and were accepted to go to America. We were going to a place called Atlanta, Georgia, where we would finally have a permanent home. Within days, we were all packed up and we boarded a plane. During the flight, I imagined what my new life would be like. I was going to go to school, we would have a house, and maybe my grandfather would find another church to pastor. When we landed, it wasn't quite what I expected. We were picked up from the airport and taken to a small office building where we filed paperwork for hours, got some money, and found out where we were going to live. After this, we were taken to our new home by a man speaking broken French, and he dropped us off, and that was it. We were in our new home. Many of our neighbors were also refugees and immigrants. We learned that our new town of Clarkston housed over 40,000 refugees in the last 25 years. This reminded me of my time in Kenya, which was nice, because everyone around me understood what I was going through. But at the same time, it was very lonely because everything in America was so different. Things started to get better once I started school. One of my teachers noticed that I was struggling, and she helped connect my family with an organization that worked with refugees. They helped us learn English, filled our house with food and furniture, and they connected us with a local church that had services in both Swahili and French. But most importantly, they became our friends, which is something we very much needed.
There are a few different ways we can help the refugee crisis. First, we can donate. This is donating our time, our extra goods we may have, or money. We can also volunteer within organizations such as the International Rescue Committee or the Red Cross, or in another organization in your hometown. We can also help refugees find jobs so they can begin to get on their feet. We can also speak up and hold events that provide awareness or donation drives in our school, work, or community organizations to help refugees receive goods. We can also be their voice and tell their stories and the things that they've seen. And we can also speak to college officials and encourage them to offer a scholarship for refugees in order for them to get their education. We can also employ and house refugees. Many refugees are fleeing war and other unthinkable atrocities, so offering your home in order for them to get on their feet is a good plan. We can also employ them in local businesses as well, and we can support these businesses in buying their products that employ refugees. We can also stay informed and keep in touch with the world and how it's ever changing and still be effective in helping. We can learn different solutions that can get our communities involved. And we can learn about the policies and the legalities of what a refugee has to go through in order to be safe and a legal refugee within a community.